And CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon joins us now from right outside the White House. Joy, great to see you this afternoon. Before we talk about the overall tone of this meeting, can we just start with that moment and how the Prime Minister had a pushback on what the President was suggesting once again on Canada being the 51st state?
Look, that was an extraordinary moment. To me, that was the moment of this meeting. It set the tone. It really did. Everyone wondered how the Prime Minister would react because Donald Trump is not backing down from his rhetoric, not backing down from his threats of taking over Canada, the 51st state. He said as much just as recently as Sunday. But the Prime Minister had a great comeback because there was praise, but there was a punch. Praising, you're a real estate guy. You know some things are not for sale, like Buckingham Palace. Again, hitting Donald Trump, with one of the things that he so admires, which is royalty, and then saying some things are not for sale, and you know that, and we're not for sale. Canadians needed to hear that. Yeah. Americans needed to hear that because he constantly says it, and it's insulting and it's belittling, and it shouldn't set the tone for what needs to be serious negotiations between these two countries. We've got to get back to trade. We've got to get back to talking about security. Yeah. There were at times, I thought the Prime Minister looked pained even. He's trying to interject, but the whole thing started off very cordial, very nice, both praising each other, but it wasn't over the top. It wasn't like sucking up, if you can excuse my language there.
But at one point, the President was asked, Joy, about that one more time. I remember initially when it all started, and his reply was very interesting. He said that we're not going to be discussing it. I'm talking about, of course, Canada being absorbed, etc., etc. He said, we're not going to be discussing it, and I'm quoting him here, unless someone wants to. Mm-hmm. So he knows it's a matter of just rhetoric and not something that's going to be a major thing. He was asked, is that going to reflect in the meeting? He said, no, not at all. So somewhere President also knew that the Prime Minister is coming prepared to sort of have a reply ready on this, and they need to focus on trade, like you said. Speaking of which, what did you make of the entire talk around USMCA, for that matter?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I was here in the Rose Garden when Donald Trump signed that free trade agreement, and he said it was the most important deal, the best deal he's ever made, the best deal in the world, in Donald Trump flair and rhetoric. And yet now he's admitting that it's just transitional. The Prime Minister picked up on that and said, look, all right, but we've got other things to discuss. We can take that agreement and we can broaden it. We can broaden it when it comes to security, when it comes to intelligence sharing, when it comes to tourism, when it comes to trade. I was waiting to see if the Prime Minister would correct Donald Trump on something he says over and over and over again, that Canada, like other countries, are ripping the United States off. He did fact check him. He did say, we actually buy more of your stuff than you buy from us. But, Trump didn't really react to that. And I also noticed one other thing. At the very end, Donald Trump started talking again about the surplus and spending all this money on Canada's defense. And, yeah, we like them, and maybe we'll protect them. But he went on and on and on. And it looked like the Prime Minister was about to interject. You could see his hands go. You could see him just kind of lunge in. And then it felt like the President cut him off and said, OK, that's enough. We're going to talk behind closed doors.
Indeed. Also, the significance of the moment, Joy, when you look at the delegation on both the sides, whether it is Minister Joly, Minister McGuinty, or LeBlanc, for that matter, Secretary of State and Secretary of Commerce, it just goes to show how important, significant, crucial this is, not just for Canada, but also for the United States of America.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think everybody knows that Canada is the biggest trading partner, or one of the biggest trading partners with the United States. They've got a lot to discuss. But it seemed to me that Donald Trump was digging in his heels, saying, no, we don't want your cars. We don't want your lumber. We want to make it here. We want to do our own thing here. And that's going to affect the auto industry immensely. So I don't know how they get around that. There will be talks of tariffs. There was some hope earlier that there would be some kind of an agreement today after their meeting, their hour-long bilat behind closed doors, that there'd be some kind of agreement to kind of set up negotiations where you go next? You know, my people will speak to your people, that sort of thing. That is the hope. But I didn't detect any anger or anything like that. But it certainly was fascinating. It was good to see Canada stand firm.
Yes.
Canadians needed to hear that. We are not for sale, but we want to do business. You know, you know, Trump saying that the Free Trade Act, the USMCA or CUSMA as we call it, it was transitional. I think that may be an opening.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here then?
Yeah, and both leaders acknowledging that they'll be having plenty more discussions where trade is concerned. For the moment, CTV's Joy Malbon in Washington. We'll check in again with you later. Joy, thank you so much for now.